Chapter 2 is create constant financial emergencies. Chapter 3 is when she resists. Question her mental health. We laughed, but it was a bitter laugh. It was both funny and tragic to recognize such predictable patterns in our own children's behavior. Did you ever feel guilty for cutting off the money? I asked Eleanor. Every single day for the first 3 months. She answered honestly. But then I started to see the results. My daughter had to get a second job. Her husband stopped playing golf every weekend and started looking for extra work. They learned to live within their means. And more importantly, they learned that I was a person, not a resource. That afternoon, I decided to do something I had postponed for years. Visit my husband's grave. I always made excuses not to go because Max or Lena needed something urgent or because the taxi fare was better invested in one of their emergencies. The cemetery was quiet and beautiful. Robert's grave looked a bit neglected because I hadn't been there to clean it in months. I sat on the grass next to his headstone and talked to him as if he were alive. Robert, my love, I think I lost myself for a while. After you left, I put all my energy into Max. I wanted to be the best mother in the world, thinking somehow he would grow up without a father. But I think in the process, I forgot to be myself. The wind blew gently, and for a moment I felt like he was listening to me. Our son has become someone I don't recognize. Or maybe he was always like this, and I didn't want to see it. His wife is well. You know how she is. The money you left for me to live peacefully, I spent it taking care of them. But not anymore, my love. I have learned. I cleaned his grave, replaced the withered flowers with new ones, and stayed there for another hour, simply enjoying the peace. For the first time in years, I was not in a hurry to get home to solve a crisis for Max and Lena. When I got home, there were 3 cars parked in front of my door again. My heart raced, but this time I was prepared. The cameras showed me that it was Max, Lena, and 2 other people I didn't recognize. Everyone seemed agitated, talking to each other and pointing at my house. I didn't get out of the car. Instead, I called Mr. Weber, my lawyer. Mr. Weber, they are at my house again. This time they've brought more people. What should I do? Don't get out of the car, Mrs. Richter. I'll be there right away and I'll call the police. After our conversation yesterday, I requested a temporary restraining order. They are not allowed to be on your property. Minutes later, Mr. Weber and 2 police patrol cars arrived. I watched the officers talk to Max and Lena, saw my son gesticulate angrily, saw Lena crying again, but this time her tears did not move me. One of the officers approached my car. Ma'am, you can get out safely. Your visitors are going to leave immediately. As I got out of the car, Max shouted at me from the street. Mom, this is ridiculous. We're your family. You can't call the police on your own son. Max, I replied with a calm that surprised even me. Family doesn't threaten lawsuits for mental incompetence. Family doesn't break into people's homes without permission. Family doesn't treat their mothers like ATMs. Lena screamed from across the street. You're going to pay us everything you owe us. We have bills you co-signed for. You can't just abandon us like this, Mr. Weber interjected. Mrs. Brooks, any future communication must be through my office, and I suggest you consult with an attorney before making collection threats, because my client has full documentation of all the payments she voluntarily made for 3 years. I watched them drive away in their cars. Defeated, but not giving up. I knew this wasn't over, but for the first time in this situation, I felt confident. I had professional help. I had emotional support from Eleanor. And more importantly, I had mental clarity about what was right and what was wrong. That night, Eleanor invited me to her house for dinner. I met her daughter who was visiting, and I was able to see with my own eyes what a healthy family relationship looked like. They spoke respectfully to each other, asked sincerely about each other's lives, and laughed together. The daughter didn't ask for money once the entire evening. I wanted that with Max too. I confessed to Eleanor after her daughter had left. And maybe you'll get it one day, she replied. But first, he has to learn that you are a person who deserves respect, not just a source of income. For the first time in weeks, I went to bed feeling hopeful about the future. The next few days were strangely peaceful. The surveillance cameras showed me that Max and Lena were driving past my house several times a day, sometimes slowly. Sometimes they parked for a few minutes, but without getting out. It was as if they were studying my routine, looking for the perfect moment for their next move. Mr. Weber had advised me to document every one of these visits, so I kept a detailed log with the date and time. Their persistence will work in our favor, he had said. Every time they show up after we've told them not to approach, it strengthens our case for a permanent restraining order. On Friday morning, I was calmly having breakfast when the doorbell rang. The cameras showed me a very well-dressed young woman with a folder in her hands and a professional smile. I didn't recognize her, but something about her posture told me it was not a social visit. "Good morning, Mrs. Renati Richter," she said as I opened the door. "I am a social investigator from the Office of Senior Services. We have received a report that you may be in an at-risk situation and we need to conduct a wellness check." My blood ran cold. Max and Lena had escalated the situation. It was no longer just threats from private lawyers. Now they had involved the government. "Can I see your ID?" I asked, trying to stay calm. "Of course." She showed me an official ID that looked genuine. "I am social worker Mrs. Schmidt. Can I come in and talk to you?" I let her in, knowing that a refusal would have been worse for my case. Mrs. Schmidt sat down in my living room and took a form out of her folder. "Mrs. Richter, we have received reports that you have shown significant changes in your financial behavior, that you have cut off communication with your family, and that you have shown signs of paranoia by installing unnecessary security systems. We were also told that you have refused medical and legal help from your loved ones." Every word had been carefully chosen to make me sound like a mentally disturbed old woman. I recognized Lena's handwriting in the wording. She had always been skilled at manipulating words to get what she wanted. "Miss Schmidt," I said with all the dignity I could muster, "I would like to call my lawyer before answering any questions." "Ma'am, this is not a legal interrogation. It's a wellness check. If you have nothing to hide, it should not be a problem to speak with me." The phrase, "if you have nothing to hide," infuriated me. It was the same logic abusers use to justify their invasions. If you're innocent, you shouldn't complain about your privacy being violated. "Miss, I'm calling my lawyer. You can wait here or come back another day, but I will not answer any questions without legal representation present." I called Mr. Weber, and he was there within 20 minutes. When he came in and saw the social worker, his expression hardened. "Miss Schmidt," he said, after checking her ID, "I hope you have a court order to be here, because my client is under my legal representation, and any unauthorized investigation constitutes harassment." "Sir," Mrs. Schmidt replied with less confidence than before, "we have reports from concerned family members about the lady's well-being. It's our duty to investigate." "What family?" Mr. Weber asked dryly. "The same family that tried to get her to sign a power of attorney without representation. The same family that broke into her house without permission and checked her private documents. The same family that excluded her from important events while living off her money." Mr. Weber took a folder from his briefcase and placed it on the table. "Here, I have complete documentation of my client's financial and emotional abuse. $33,400 that were withdrawn from her accounts in 3 years. Systematic social exclusion and emotional blackmail. If someone needs to be investigated here, it is not my client." Mrs. Schmidt reviewed the documents with growing discomfort. It was obvious that the information she had been given did not match the reality she had in front of her. "Mrs. Artor," she said finally, "can you explain to me why you so abruptly stopped financial support for your son?" "Because I finally discovered they were using me," I replied simply. Because I realized that to them I wasn't a mother, but a bank account. Because I was tired of financing the lives of people who saw me as an obstacle. But don't you feel it's your responsibility to help your family? The question outraged me. Miss Schmidt, my responsibility as a mother was to raise my son until he was 18, to educate him, and to give him the tools to be an independent adult. My son is 35 years old, married, and perfectly capable of supporting himself. Financing his adult life is not my responsibility. It is my choice, and I have chosen not to do so anymore. Mr. Weber interjected. Miss Schmidt, would you consider it normal for a 35-year-old adult to be unable to pay his own rent without the help of his 71-year-old mother? Mrs. Schmidt did not answer right away. I could see she was reevaluating the entire situation. Mrs. Richter, she asked after a moment, do you manage your own finances completely? I can show you my bank statements, my investments, my tax payments. Everything is current and in order. Do you live independently?